No, good swing out. Stand back in. Yep.
Deputies slapped the cuffs on Robert DeWeese after a 6-year-old girl said he raped her in the bathroom of a popular store. Now DeWeese is in jail, and it's not his first brush with the law. We'll go through the terrifying claims made by prosecutors and how detectives say DeWeese tricked the little girl into opening a bathroom door. Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. There's a 6-year-old girl who went through a really scary experience in the bathroom of a store in Ohio. What detectives say happened to her with her mom in the store could happen to anyone, and that's really the terrifying part of this. A man named Robert DeWeese is in jail, accused of raping that 6-year-old girl, and he's charged as a repeat violent offender, meaning he's done it before. The case takes us to South Lebanon, Ohio. That's about 30 miles north of Cincinnati, and a mall where the girl and her mom were shopping. It was February 6th when this girl and her mom were shopping at the Five Below store, one of those stores where everything's $5 or less. An incident report shows the call came in at 3:07 p.m. A woman reported that a male touched her daughter in the bathroom. The next note states, no camera in store. Then, unknown if the male is there. After that, unknown what the male looked like. The daughter is 6 years old, according to the report, and the next comments say they're in the front of the store. Now, the report goes on to say that the girl didn't see the man at that time, but unknown who he was. But somehow, deputies tracked down a suspect.
Yeah. Have a seat. Watch your knee.
It was after 11 p.m. that same night that the deputies found Robert DeWeese and took him into custody at a home nearby.
No, good swing out. Stand back in. Yep. Alright, we're gonna walk up that big glass door. First room on your left if it's not occupied. Have a seat in that little round chair.
Robert DeWeese was booked into the jail on a gross sexual imposition charge, but now the charges have been upgraded after the prosecutor presented the case to a grand jury. DeWeese now faces 2 counts of rape, 2 counts of gross sexual imposition, 1 count of kidnapping, and 1 count of abduction. There are specifications that come with the charges. The grand jurors found that DeWeese is a sexually violent predator. DeWeese has been convicted of sex offenses in Ohio going back to 2007. In June of 2021, DeWeese was charged with gross sexual imposition. A probable cause affidavit stated on June 4th, 2021, an 11-year-old girl and her mother were at Dollar Tree in Lancaster, Fairfield County, Ohio. The girl reported that the suspect, later identified by both the girl and her mother by photo array as Robert DeWeese, followed her and her mother around the store while talking to himself. The girl stated while waiting in line, DeWeese began to rub her back and tell her she was pretty. DeWeese then began to rub her buttocks and thigh area. Both the girl and her mom gave a detailed description of the perpetrator. Lancaster police developed DeWeese as the suspect, and the girl and her mom identified DeWeese as the perpetrator via photo array. So this is a similar type of incident. A woman and her daughter reported that DeWeese followed them around a store and that he began to rub her rear end and thigh area. Now Robert DeWeese, a 36-year-old man, is accused of sexually assaulting a 6-year-old girl in a family bathroom at a Five Below store. Warren County's prosecutor, David Fornshell, told a local TV station that the girl had an accident, so her mom locked her in that family bathroom of the store, and they agreed on a secret knock for the door. The mom, according to the prosecutor, went out into the store to buy her daughter new pants, but DeWeese had eavesdropped on the conversation and mimicked the knock on the door. The girl, according to the prosecutor, opened the door, and that is when DeWeese walked in and committed the assault. But the girl, she started screaming. It was something she had apparently learned in Girl Scouts, and that alerted people to what was happening. Thank goodness. So I'd like to bring in Chris Klotz. He represents survivors of both child and adult sexual abuse to discuss this case. Chris, thanks so much for coming on. This is a really disturbing case. This could have happened to any one of us who has kids. You know, you're walking around a store, you know, and your child has an accident, and then mom, I guess, you know, according to what the prosecutor said, mom locks the daughter in the bathroom and says, "Hey, I'm going to go get you some new pants." She's going to go buy the pants at the store, come back to the bathroom, and she says, "I'm going to do this secret knock." And the prosecutor tells the local news station WLWT that this guy, DeWeese, Robert DeWeese, overhears and eavesdrops on the secret knock, does the secret knock, and that's how he gains access to this bathroom. And then the allegation is that he rapes this little girl. I mean, what is your response to that as somebody who represents survivors? I just can't imagine. It seems like this happened very, very quickly.
Yeah, Angenette, thanks for having me on. So this is just one of the many, many unfortunate, disgustingly bad cases where you have a parent who's trying to do the right thing, who thinks that they're putting their child in a safe place while they're going just out to the store to try to get some clothes. Everybody's had a child who's raised kids who's had an accident at some point, and parent tries to do the right thing. Child's locked in the bathroom, secret knock to get back in. And then you've got this absolute creep who is overhearing or like stalking them to figure out how to get to this little girl. And so it's a tremendously bad cautionary tale about even when you think that you're doing the best that you can do in a circumstance, you really, really need to always be mindful of who's around, because you never know when you're out in a public setting. And so this is an awful case.
No, yeah, it's a terrible case. And you really don't know who's walking around, you know, in a store, watching you, following you around. And you may not even realize it because you're just a mom in a store walking around with your child. And it's really a cautionary tale too, to really be aware of your surroundings. You know, it stinks that in this day and age, you might need to be kind of like looking over your shoulder. But you kind of have to do that, and you can get so easily distracted and be so focused on what you're doing.
Well, listen, kind of looking at it from the standpoint of the mom, child has an accident, which is an embarrassing thing for the child, and you want the child to feel okay and safe, and you want to do, your instinct as a mom is to try to, fix that situation. And so that is probably something that was, the mom really wanted to go ahead and get, some clean clothes for the child. I don't know how bad the accident was, but, we've all had kids. And so we know that can be really traumatic for the child. So your focus is on trying to take care of your child. And while you're doing that, there's some predator out there who is like eyeballing y'all to see if you're in a vulnerable position. And, I never like to sound paranoid, and I always want people to live their life, but you just have to be super, super aware of your surroundings and know that there are really bad human beings out there who are not putting you or your family or your children first. They're putting themselves and their absolute, twisted desires first. And so you just have to be aware. And so I think the mom was trying to do the right thing. I think they just had a very sophisticated predator that was lurking around waiting for an opportunity.
One thing, Chris, that is really creepy about this, and of course, this Robert DeWeese, he's innocent until proven guilty, but there are some specifications that the prosecutor and the grand jury indicted this guy on, and it's the fact that he's basically like a repeat offender, and they're calling him a violent sexual predator, and he has convictions for gross sexual imposition going back to 2007 in the state of Ohio, and he's been arrested in several counties. The prosecutor says he just got out of prison. He got out of prison like 3 days before this happened. And I want to put up on the screen part of a probable cause affidavit from a 2021 incident in which he was convicted and served some time. And it talks about a similar incident in a store. This was a little bit different, but in this, it says on June 4th, 2021, an 11-year-old girl and her mother were at Dollar Tree in Lancaster, Fairfield County, Ohio. The girl reported the suspect, later identified by both the girl and her mother by photo array as Robert DeWeese, followed her and her mother around the store while talking to himself. The girl stated while waiting in line, DeWeese began to rub her back and tell her she was pretty. DeWeese then began to rub her buttocks and thigh area. Both the girl and her mom gave a detailed description of the perpetrator. Lancaster police developed DeWeese as a suspect, and the girl and her mom identified DeWeese as the perpetrator via photo array. I mean, this is weird. I mean, this guy has been convicted in the past of lurking around stores, following girls and their moms around. So I'm assuming that we may see surveillance video at some point in time of this guy at the Five Below, potentially following this woman and her daughter around this Five Below store. I mean, this is really, really creepy.
I would not be surprised at all if once the police and the state attorneys get all of the evidence, that they see that this mom and daughter were followed at some point around the store, and then he saw an opportunity and he listened in on their conversation, and he probably was just pretending to be in the background. I would not be shocked at all if they actually end up with video evidence that he was actually following them around, or maybe even that he had been in the store following other people around until he saw an opportunity and he just, kind of was paying attention and seeing who might be vulnerable. So it really is shocking, surprising. It's the last thing that you're thinking about sometimes as a parent. And again, I see so many of these cases where parents have the best intentions. They're trying to do the right thing. And then you have somebody who's just absolutely sick, who is got a motive to do something harmful to a child, sometimes to an adult, and takes advantage of it. So again, not to sound completely paranoid, but we do have to, as parents and responsible adults, be aware of our surroundings and always pay attention.
And this guy, DeWeese, according to the prosecutor, he'd been out of prison for 3 days when this happened on February 6th. I mean, 3 days? I mean, if that, we're still trying to get some confirmation on that, the timeline, but if that pans out, that's shows like a total lack of self-control. And whatever maybe treatment this guy was going through, if he is indeed found guilty of these charges, it didn't take.
Yeah, well, so something else that I was doing a little bit of looking into it before we jumped on to talk about it, so I could know a little bit more about it. And it also seems that he had a prior offense where he was on probation, and then violated his probation by committing another sex offense against a child. So this is not somebody who is, this is their first time, probably not even their second, third, or fourth time. This is somebody that has appears to have an adult lifelong problem, and it raises the question of, as a system, where's the system breakdown? Because this guy isn't somebody that you're like having to wonder about, is this a good guy or a bad guy? This is somebody who is a bad person, who, evidenced by the track of the prior criminal history that I have seen in the media, based on that, this is not somebody that was a surprise that might be a repeat offender. As a system, it really raises issues. What can we do as responsible citizens to make sure that the system actually can track people like this and do a better job? Because usually when somebody's released from prison, they're coming into a probation setting. They're going to come out and meet with a probation officer. They're going to come out and meet with a parole officer. Where was the supervision in this particular case, and why, was he not on some kind of monitoring? Why was he not on some type of, direction that he not go to certain places? I know maybe stores would not be a prohibited place, but there seems to be a systemic failure with somebody who has this kind of track record. And it's something that we really need to ask about and talk to our legislators and representatives and our law enforcement people about what do we do concerning people who have this type of track record. It shouldn't be happening time after time after time after time.
This little girl, though, should be commended for how she handled this. Apparently she started screaming. It was something she learned in Scouts.
Yep.
This had to just be terrifying for her.
Sure. Well, and to her credit, so maybe through the years, scouting has gotten a bad, kind of a bad knock because there's been some cases with the scouting program. But I do want to say that wherever she learned this skill set about being vocal, it's a program that is taught to young people about how to protect themselves when they're in a situation exactly like this. It's called the ROAR program. ROAR is an acronym. And if she learned it through scouting, that's great. I wish more children were given this information, but it's ROAR. The R stands for remember privates are private. The O stands for it's okay to say no, because sometimes children don't know it's okay to say no to a grown up. The A stands for always tell secrets to a responsible or a safe adult. And then the R is for raise your voice, which this little girl obviously did. And to her credit, she was able to stay present of mind enough to remember what she had learned. And, thank goodness that she learned that because it probably ended up saving her from something much, much worse happening.
Yeah, most definitely. Just awful. And this should be, I hope people who see this talk to kids they know about it and maybe teach them the roar, just screaming, and that, if you're cornered like this, scream and, just make as much noise as you can. That's what they recommend.
Yeah.
Chris, thank you so much for joining me. Just a really terrifying, horrible case could have happened to anybody. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and if I could just close by saying one thing for the parents out there that are watching, talk to your children about these types of things. I know that it's uncomfortable to talk with your kids about potential for sexual abuse or inappropriate touching, but we all in this day and age need to have conversations with our kids that are hard about it is okay to say no. You need to have 3 to 5 safe adults that you can tell secrets to in your life, and empower your children to know that they haven't done something wrong. It's the grown up that has done something wrong, and that it's safe for them to talk to you about it.
Most definitely. Thanks again, Chris.
Thank you very much. Good to see you as always.
Now let's take a look one more time at that body camera footage of Robert DeWeese in custody.
Yeah. Have a seat. Right, watch your knee. Now, good swing out. Stand back in. Yep. Alright, we're gonna walk up that big glass door. First room on your left if it's not occupied. Have a seat in that little round chair.
For now, Robert DeWeese remains in custody at the Warren County Jail in Ohio. His next court date has not yet been determined. And that's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. Thanks so much for being with me. I'll see you back here next time.